Before you hear a single clash of steel, understand this. On the morning of September 7th, 1191, one of the most experienced armies on Earth was already dying, without a battle. They were trapped between the sea and the desert. Their water was gone. Their horses were failing, and every mile forward tightened the noose. Now here is the first question you need to hold on to, because the answer will only come later. How do you survive when retreat guarantees death, and advancing invites annihilation? That is the problem Richard of England woke up to. Not a heroic charge, not a glorious plan, a calculation. Because somewhere beyond those dunes, just out of sight, waited an enemy force that outnumbered him, surrounded him, and had been watching his every step for days. And yet, what happens next would be remembered not as a defeat, but as one of the most precise military reversals in medieval history. In just 17 minutes, the balance of power would flip. But here's what makes this moment so unsettling. Most accounts focus on the violence. Very few explain the decision that made it possible. And even fewer explain why it should never have worked. So keep this in mind as we move forward. If Richard miscalculates by seconds, his army collapses. If he hesitates, Jaffa is lost. If he attacks too early, he is surrounded. Too late, he is crushed. This was not bravery. This was timing. And timing, as you'll see, was everything. Now pause for a moment and imagine this. 20,000 men stretched along a narrow strip of land, sea on one side, enemy banners on the other. No room to maneuver, no safe water, no second chances. Ask yourself, where would you strike? Because Richard chose a place most commanders would never dare to. And when we reach that decision, the exact second he commits, you'll understand why chroniclers later called it a miracle of arms. Even though it was built on exhaustion, fear, and ruthless discipline. Before we go any further, if you appreciate deep-dive battle stories, hidden strategies, and moments where history turns on a single decision, subscribe to the channel. It helps this story reach more people who love real history, not myths. And if this kind of content keeps you watching, like and share, it tells YouTube to keep delivering stories like this. Now stay with me, because what happens next is not the charge. It's the silence before it. And in that silence, Richard the Lionheart prepares the move that will decide everything in just 17 minutes. September 7th, 1191. Dawn breaks over a narrow ribbon of sand and scrub that hugs the eastern Mediterranean. 20,000 men march toward the last port that can feed them, Jaffa, chronicle estimates say, a single lifeline between survival and starvation. The sea glitters to their right. To their left, the ground rises into dunes and scrub, and beyond that, a crescent of enemy banners waits. For Richard of England, known to some as the Lionheart, the simple arithmetic of the day is brutal. Reach Jaffa within days, or watch the army dissolve under sun and hunger. What follows will be a sequence of decisions and improvisations so precise, so violent in execution, that later chroniclers would call it a miracle of arms. It would last 17 minutes. If you love deep-dive battle stories, hit subscribe. There are more like this ahead. The column stretches like a living rope. Foot soldiers' shoulder packs baked with sweat. Horses pant, mouths foaming. Many are already too tired to carry a night at speed. Water is a rumor. Where wells once gushed, men find mud and the bitter tang of poisoned or fouled springs, or simply dry rock. Chroniclers record wells rendered useless by scorched earth, and Saladin's strategy of denial. Islamic sources remember the same day as one of tight encirclement and constant pressure. Either way, the effect is immediate. Men shrink in the midday glare, shields glisten under dust and salt, and the lines of something that might once have been neat order begin to fray. Richard's problem is not only heat and thirst. His march along the coast is dictated by logistics. Inland is rough country and hostile ground. Only the port can bring in supplies and keep the campaign going. Marching close to the sea gives room for a flank, but it also narrows options. With the sea pressing at their right, the Crusader column has reduced maneuverability. Saladin, master of mobility and deception in these years, recognizes the leverage. He deploys a force, by chronicler accounts, that may approach 30,000. Numbers disputed, as always, but large enough to encircle. His army forms a crescent, a sickle of spears and horse archers and Mamluk heavy cavalry that can press along the landward side and hammer the column's exposed face. The psychological landscape is as lethal as the physical one. Before the main clash even begins, Saladin's commanders set to work. Turkish horse archers skitter along the edges, firing in loose, killing volleys that turn the Crusaders' shields into something like porcupine quills. Defense intended to keep attackers at distance becomes a bristling hindrance to movement. Drum beats and horns ripple across the gaps between tented encampments and moving ranks. Signals pass through the Muslim lines with practiced efficiency. Where Muslim chroniclers emphasize coordination and restraint, Christian accounts lean into the impression of surround and suffocation. Both agree on the effect: pressure that is patient, relentless, designed to bleed the column by attrition rather than by a single overwhelming stroke. In the rear, attrition is already becoming a crisis. Horses collapse under packs and heat. Men stagger. A vanguard that starts the day in good order becomes a chain of little disasters. A broken wheel in a baggage cart, a stray camel throwing a halter across a line, and causing a tangle that leaves soldiers exposed for minutes. Each small failure invites attention. The crescent's cavalry circle outward and probe, seeking weakness. Command, when it is exercised, is austere and tense. Richard rides near the center of the column, his black armor dark against the pale sand. He is not a man who thumbs through plans in the shade. He prefers to move where he is needed, to see, to issue orders with the bluntness of a man used to getting immediate returns. Beside him ride his trusted captains, men whose faces have been set by years of war. Raymond of Tripoli manages the coastal flank. The marshalling of knights, Hospitallers, Templars, and the various French contingents is a daily negotiation between pride and necessity. Each knight rides with his own sense of honor and his own grievances. Discipline holds, but it is taut like a bowstring. Saladin's dispositions merit a moment of attention. His center is anchored by Mamluk cavalry, heavy and immaculately trained. These are men who can strike with shock and hold against armor. Flanking them are Turkish horse archers, nimble, light, experts in the stirrup shot and the feigned withdrawal. To the right, under commanders such as Taqi al-Din, whose command is noted in several accounts as decisive that morning, there are squadrons intended to fold in and press the Crusaders' flank and rear. The crescent is not a single impenetrable wall. It is a composition of different arms, each designed to exploit a Crusader weakness: lack of water, tired mounts, and the narrow corridor that constrains retreat. Pressure becomes action in small, consuming episodes. Arrows fall like a fine rain. Not every shaft finds a man. Many find shield rims or the hard flesh of a horse's flank. Still, the cumulative effect is devastating. Horses, already exhausted, spill sideways. A knight loses his seat and lies stunned. In the shade of a dune, a group of infantry has their standards tangled with baggage and cannot form up. These are the moments that, combined, create crisis. The rearguard, tasked with protecting the wagons and slower foot, bears the brunt. Chronicle accounts, Christian chroniclers in particular, describe a scene of chaos, a line bending, then snapping. The Hospitallers stand where the tide is highest. They are a brotherhood sworn to defend pilgrims and holy places. They are also warriors bound by a code and a hierarchy. Geerdablus, the marshal of the Hospitallers according to some records, has under him a cohort of brothers trained for ordered defense. Baldwin of Cairo is younger, hot-blooded, and less patient with attrition than with command. When the Turks press, their tactics are not intended for a decisive melee, but for a slow tearing. The Hospitallers find themselves hammered with horse archers and nudged at by heavier squadrons. It is here, at the fraying edge of the Crusader column, that human will fractures into singular action. The sources agree that the charge which follows is unauthorized. It is an act not of the general staff, but of individuals moved by fear, by honor, by a sense of immediate necessity to act. Baldwin of Carrow signals his men. He spurs forward. One chronicler says 300 Hospitaller knights burst from the line like a single thing. Another suggests fewer. A later Muslim account minimizes the number and emphasizes the disorder they created. Numbers differ, motives are debated, but the effect is tangible. The Hospitaller's forward lunge collides with Saladin's right wing. The clash is abrupt and close. In a narrative that will later be stretched and romanticized, this unauthorized charge is the spark. The Hospitallers hit a point in Saladin's line that is less dense, perhaps undermanned through the previous maneuvers, or stretched thin in an attempt to hem the column. Leather creaks, horses scream, and for a handful of moments the entire soundscape compresses into the crush of hooves and the ringing of arms. What the Hospitallers do not intend, and what Richard is watching for, is the psychological cascade that this forward burst will trigger across the battlefield. Discipline is not only about following orders, it is also about exploiting opportunities when they appear. Richard has spent years rehearsing signals, horn calls that can transform fragmented commands into coordinated movement. His command is not a doctrine of rigid drills, but a practical set of cues that men in armor can see and hear, even as dust blinds and blood scents the air. When Baldwin's charge breaks part of Saladin's right, it creates a temporary tangibility, a hole, an exposed flank, a momentary panic in a body of men used to ordered pressure. What prevents the Hospitallers from disappearing into the moor is not only their steel, but the way their action refracts through a command structure that knows how to read danger and opportunity. Around Richard, decision flows like a cold current. He does not lean toward reckless pursuit. He recognizes that a spur into the enemy without support is a way to be cut off. At the same time, he cannot ignore the seam which has opened. If properly exploited, that seam is a way to strike a decisive blow if he can concentrate force quickly enough and in the right shape. Harkening back to the lessons of cavalry warfare, medieval commanders understood the principle in concrete terms. A concentrated mass of heavy cavalry could punch through a line designed to hold against lighter, ranged threats. The wedge formation, V-shaped, point inward, funnels force onto a single point, creating momentum and compressing impact. It trades distributive flexibility for penetrating power. If the Crusaders could assemble enough knights in wedges, if their supporting infantry could hold the newly created corridor, and if horse archers could be driven off at point-blank range, then the crescent's fragile seams might be forced into collapse. Across the way, Saladin's commanders do not sit idle. Taqi al-Din and his lieutenants reel to reform lines. Mamluk units stiffen where they can and attempt to close the gap. Turkish horse archers try feigned retreats to draw out any Crusader pursuit into killing ranges. In the open, the fight is a contest of timing. Who can organize mass faster? Who can replace fallen riders? Who can exploit disarray before cohesion returns? Muslim chroniclers emphasize a strategic patience. Christian accounts emphasize the drama of the charge. Both perspectives, taken together, reveal the battlefield as less a single clash and more a contest of rhythm. The column pauses at several key junctions of decision. Richard has to account for more than the immediate tactical promise. Behind the fighting lie wagons full of pay, the baggage that contains not just loot, but pay for troops and stores for the sick. To allow the baggage train to be seized is to court supply collapse. Between blade and baggage sits the man who must treat both as instruments of war, seize the moment with force, or preserve the army by protecting what keeps it moving. That balancing act will define the rest of the campaign. But on this morning, the choice presents a more immediate calculus. Can a sudden thrust be turned into a rout, or will it dissolve the Crusader column into piecemeal destruction? As the Hospitallers press, something shifts. Knights from neighboring contingents, spurred by the raw sight of their brothers charging and perhaps fearing the shame of inaction, rise in an emotional contagion. Brother Gear Dablus, whether by command or by the force of events, forms his men to follow. The Templars edge forward. The French nobility, volatile and fierce, answer the call in varying degrees. This is a dangerous kind of order, not centrally sanctioned, but emergent, powered by a chain of honor and the immediate logic of survival. Richard takes measure. He watches cavalry fall back and then surge. He picks his moment with the deliberation of someone who has led men on dozens of campaigns. When he moves, his signal is crisp and rehearsed. 3 blasts on the horn, a simple known cue, pass along the ranks like a lightning flash. Soldiers learn to read such cues even when words fail them under the weight of battle. The horn gives shape to chaos. It tells the men where they must go and in what manner. In that instant, the army stops being a scattered procession and begins to act as a composed instrument. There is calculation in the choice of 3 blasts. It is not ritual, it is command condensed. Hold what you must and concentrate where it matters. Around Richard, men shift into formations that have been practiced in camp and battlefield for years. Cavalry forming into wedges, infantry bracing to support the points and to protect flanks. The wedge is not merely a sign, it is a physics problem turned into steel and horseflesh. Its purpose is to gather momentum and to focus impact on a single, manageable seam in an opposing line. When that seam is narrow, when the defender lacks depth, the wedge becomes a lever. For a heartbeat, the field holds its breath. The Turkish horse archers, excellent at harassment and shooting on the run, find themselves in a position where their skills are less decisive. At close quarters, bow and stirrup become hazards, not solutions. Mamluks, heavy and disciplined, are at the anchor points, less easily displaced. But their ability to be rapidly redeployed is constrained by the crescent's own geometry. Momentum meets weight at the point where the Hospitallers have struck. What matters now is not just who strikes first, but who can keep the pressure for the brief window it needs to render a localized victory irreversible. It is here, the point where Richard has recognized opportunity and committed to shaping force, that time compresses. Men on both sides act with a mixture of training and instinct. The soundscape moves from the steady susurration of arrows to a focused roar. The wind of horses, the crash of impact, the shouts of captains. History will remember a 17-minute window as decisive. For now, as the horn's echo dies, the army begins to move in the pattern it has rehearsed in hard winters and campfires. Richard's ordered response is not purely mechanical. He balances weight and timing. He must not let pursuit extend beyond the shore. The sea limits flanks, and the baggage lies exposed. His chosen vector for the wedge is to drive through the pierced right wing and fold the enemy inward toward the sea, where withdrawal becomes harder. The idea is audacious because it trades the easy safety of defense for a puncturing offense that risks overextension. Yet audacity is part of the calculus, because in this moment, audacity may be less risky than resignation. What follows, when it begins, will be a concentrated use of heavy cavalry, supported by foot and by the temper of men who have been cornered but are not yet broken. The wedge will be reinforced at its edges to prevent the enemy from wheeling and isolating the point. Infantry will be tasked to seize and hold the gaps created, to prevent replacements from being funneled in. It is a choreography played at gallop and at sword's length. But this is also a human story. Names float up in the din: Baldwin of Caro, whose blade drove the first spark; Gear Dablus, the marshal; Taqi al-Din trying to repair the right wing; The Mamluk body holding the center, the Turkish bowmen skittering like errant swallows across the left. Each name contains choices: bravery, error, timing. Each man is bound to the others by a fragile web of coincidence and command. In a different alignment of minutes, any one of these men could have been the deciding factor in the other direction. Just as the horns finish their cry, flags unfurl in new alignments. Wedges stiffen. Men bite their lips and urge tired mounts into renewed effort. The sea glows, indifferent. The narrow road toward Jaffa narrows still under the weight of decisions. Dust rises in the early sun, and in that rising dust a single question hangs. Will a momentary rupture become the opening for an organized breakthrough, or will it be a flash of courage swallowed by the disciplined weight of Saladin's forces? The answer rests for now in the alignment of seconds. Richard has chosen. He has called the maneuver. He has wagered that concentrated shock, applied with timing and supported by infantry holding the seam, will transform localized success into a decisive penetration. The Hospitallers' unauthorized charge has become, by contagion and by Richard's will, the catalyst for something larger. Dust and noise surge. Trumpets and shouts overlay the earlier rhythm of arrow fire. Men close ranks, and in the place where chaos met order, a new shape forms. The first wedge leans into the gap. The horizon narrows as the point advances. Time, which had been measured by the march and the wheel, now contracts into breath and blade. The moment before impact is taut as a drawn bow. And then, the line moves forward. The line moves forward. Steel bites air. Horses surge. The point of the first wedge drives into loosened mail and leather, a compact mass of men and mounts shoving a hole into the crescent. The impact is immediate. Shields tilt, lances shiver, and a ripple of men tumble as momentum meets resistance. For the first heartbeats, the field is a compressed, brutal thing. No room for archers to draw, no space for feigned retreats to work. The Hospitallers who sparked this have not died into heroics. They have bought a slender, dangerous opening. Around that opening, Richard pours weight. Blasts of horn cut the din like commands rendered physical. The second wedge forms to the left, the third to the right. Each is smaller than an army, but larger than a company. Scores, then hundreds, then a concentrated mass of heavy cavalry threaded together by discipline. These are not lone knights seeking glory. They are a congealed instrument, shoulder to shoulder, horse flank to horse flank, aimed at a seam. Footmen press in behind them, spears leveled to hold gaps and drag down any horse that falls. Slingers and crossbowmen edge forward in the corridor to clear the flanks. The choreography is simple and mortal. Punch, widen, seal. Time collapses. Minutes become seconds. The Turkish horse archers try to peel away, to trade space for safety. But the wedge does not allow easy exits. Where arrows once shredded ranks at range, they now splinter harmlessly against horned helms and overlapping shields. Horse archers, exposed and too light for a sustained stand, find themselves brushed aside by iron and weight. The Mamluk anchor is heavy and disciplined. It holds where it must, but every holding point requires men. Replacements cannot be conjured through the chaos. They must ride into a narrowing bottleneck, through the pressed flank that now funnels destruction. At the seam, the first contact becomes a small war within a war. Lances break like reeds, horses rear and collapse. Where a mount falls, a man either dies or fights foot to foot, his sword shortened to an arm's-length task. The wedges are designed to break cohesion, and they work by crushing the local order. Men who were part of a flowing crescent now find themselves converted into isolated clumps. Command becomes difficult for Saladin's lieutenants. Who is nearest? Who can move without opening another breach? Taqi al-Din hurls shards of cavalry at the point, attempting to roll the wedge open. But even his reserves meet stinging counters. A rhythm of engagement emerges. Push, grind, replace, push again. This is the mechanical side. There is also the pulse of morale, and here the Crusaders have found a brittle place in their enemy's psychology. The Hospitallers' charge has done more than create a gap. It has planted the idea of collapse. When men in a formation see a hole and then a wedge widening it, panic is contagious in the opposite direction from courage. Units on Saladin's right that expected to shepherd and corral now glimpse a coastline hemmed by horses and the sea behind. Withdrawal is limited. Some units recoil, others try to stiffen. The differences in response are decisive. Where one banner wavers, the adjacent wing must cover or be drawn into disarray. The wedge exploits these arithmetic failures in command. For 17 minutes, the battlefield is a violent arithmetic. How many wedges can the Crusaders throw before their horses breathe their last? How many replacements can Saladin send before the wedge becomes a spear that reaches the center? The answer comes in pacing. Richard times each surge. He does not hurl his body at the enemy all at once. He staggers commitment to keep pressure at the seam without exhausting his mounts in one uncontrolled roar. Cavalry leap, hold for a moment, and are drawn back to allow fresh squadrons to push. Infantry backfill is immediate and ruthless. Those who hold the broken lane do so with pikes and caltrops, so that enemy horse cannot wheel and counter. Close to the center, the Mamluks feel the strain. They are veteran troops, armored and trained to meet shock. Their presence prevents a wholesale collapse into the heart of Saladin's camp, but they cannot simultaneously plug every slice and cover every withdrawal route. As one seam is sealed, another is forced to bear a new burden. The cumulative effect is unavoidable, attrition of the defenders' coherence. Men tumble, standards dip, and the crescent begins to fold inward where it should have held. A moment arrives when a standard bearer, a figure both practical and symbolic, staggers and is unhorsed within reach of Richard's retinue. For a breath, the Lionheart is visible among the knights. His banner moves, his voice cuts short orders, and he rides near the point to steady charge and temper pursuit. Chroniclers will later magnify the drama of such near encounters. In the immediate term, the effect is practical. Seeing their commander at the spearhead consolidates morale for the Crusaders and produces ripple in the Muslim lines. Men look at where their enemies are led and take measure. In warfare, the presence of a leader can be a multiplier. Here, for a few crucial minutes, it is a multiplier of cohesion. Still, the wedge's success depends on a technicality of battlefield geometry. The crescent, by design, sought to envelop. Its geometry leaves finite depth behind the point where the wedge strikes. If depth is insufficient, a breach becomes a funnel through which a force can press to disrupt logistics and command nodes. The Crusaders, deliberately driving toward the sea, aim to use the coastline as a forcing line, press the enemy inward, and deny them space to reorganize. This is audacious because it removes lateral avenues of maneuver for the attackers as well as the defenders. If the Crusaders overreach, they could be cored and destroyed against the water. If they do not overreach, their blow can crack coordination and unmask the camp and baggage behind. The next minutes are a testament to combined arms. Where cavalry cannot hold, infantry holds. Where the wedge risks being rolled, a flank of spearmen locks and grinds. Crossbowmen shoot down from a protective ridge to catch any man trying to rally. Engineers, if that is not an anachronism for the era, are present in the form of men who know how to manipulate terrain. They push carts to create temporary barricades and use wagons to deny an enemy avenue. The Crusaders' reserves move like clockwork, ones trained in campaign life and hard winter discipline. The psychological scarring of months without adequate water has been turned into something else. A muscle of urgent, focused cooperation. On the opposing side, Saladin's commanders attempt countermeasures that are textbook in their logic. They try to wheel heavy cavalry to strike wedges from the flank. They attempt to use mobile horse archer detachments to feint and pull the Crusaders' flanks into stretch. They send runners to call up reserves from the center. Yet each counter draws on the same fragile pool of manpower and time. As one pocket of the crescent stiffens, another slackens. In confined time, the Crusaders' concentrated blows outpace the defenders' ability to reconstitute depth. The scene is savage, but not indiscriminate. Both sides are professional soldiers executing a lethal, complex dance. Shields meet lances, helmets crash on helms, men die or are taken. In the midst of this hard calculus, a further casualty is exacted upon Saladin's force, the baggage train. As the wedge forces a wedge's worth of space and chaos, light cavalry and foot move into the disorder and seize what they can. Packs containing pay, rigging, tents, and provisions fall into Crusader hands. The loss of supply and pay is not merely material. It is corrosive to morale and to campaign sustainability. Richard's men do not simply cut down enemies. They gather the spoils that will keep the line fed and paid in coming days. 17 minutes, measured out by the pulse of blows and breath and horn calls, culminates in a crescendo where the crescent no longer circles. It bends and begins to break. The right wing, the one first struck by the Hospitallers and then gouged by sequential wedges, loses cohesion. Banners fall. Commanders call but cannot be heard above the din. The identity of the Muslim line, a composition of arms and purpose, fractures into pieces that flee, fight in isolated knots, or surrender. Many run toward the interior that Saladin hoped to keep as a reserve. Some seek the sea where the Crusaders cannot turn easily, others are taken or scattered. At the moment of collapse, Richard decides on restraint. He does not convert his victory into total annihilation. The pursuit is measured, not manic. Men who could chase to the ragged edge of the enemy camp are drawn back to tend the wounded, to collect plunder, to secure wagons, and to reform into an army that can march after night. Several practical reasons underwrite this decision. Horses are exhausted. Their breath is ragged. Their legs already salted by dust and heat. Riding a horse beyond its limit risks losing the mobility that remains. A deep pursuit toward the interior risks turning the attacker's momentum into vulnerability against fresh reserves or an envelopment. Baggage, now partly in Crusader hands, must be secured. The campaign cannot live without it. Richard weighs these elements and chooses preservation of force over the sensual triumph of pursuit. This is a critical choice. The immediate tactical objective is achieved. The column fights its way free, and the threatened route to Jaffa is held. The deeper strategic problem remains unsolved. Saladin himself escapes. His army, though bloodied and shaken in parts, is not annihilated. Command cohesion, even if ragged, is sufficient to regroup. Saladin withdraws with enough forces to continue resistance, to gather supplies from inland resources, and to implement a scorched earth denial policy that will trouble Crusader logistics for the months to come. The cost of the 17-minute victory is therefore a paradox, brilliance in execution, a persistence of strategic danger. The battlefield after the horn's echo is a landscape of smoldering order. Bodies, many, lie where they fell. Others are tended. Prisoners are collected. The Crusader ranks, still breathless, stack swords and begin the recovery work that is the natural aftermath of any pitched success. Baggage that was taken is inventoried and protected. Medics and surgeons, men of skill and men of faith, work amid the dust to stop bleeding, set broken bones, and bind wounds with what little they have. The soundscape shifts from battle to the quieter noises of triage and salvage. Chroniclers record this aftermath in different keys. Christian sources celebrate the scale of enemy dead and the capture of treasure. Islamic accounts stress determination and the ability to withdraw under pressure. Where numbers are quoted, where Christian chroniclers claim thousands killed and vast quantities seized, historians must be cautious. Sources differ on exact counts. Bias and the logic of moral narrative color claims. Some Muslim accounts minimize losses, emphasizing instead the tactical necessity of a strategic retreat that preserved options. The prudent historian treats casualty figures as contingent and as rhetorical instruments rather than precise arithmetic. The immediate material outcomes are nonetheless plain. The Crusaders keep their road to Jaffa. They secure supplies long thought threatened. They demonstrate a tactical method that will be studied and in some future conflicts imitated. But the strategic tableau looks more ambiguous when drawn back to its wider scope. Saladin's survival means the war continues. His ability to implement scorched earth and to harass liberated positions denies the Crusaders the concentrated effect of their victory. The capture of Jaffa provides a short-term supply lifeline, but not a conclusive political solution. The central objective of the Third Crusade, the recovery of Jerusalem, remains unresolved. Richard's decision to halt pursuit is therefore not mere caution. It is a lens into his strategic calculus. He had several blunt alternatives: pursue to annihilate, risking overextension, or consolidate and preserve, accepting the enemy's escape and the long war of attrition that would follow. He chose the latter. The choice is defensible in the logic of campaign sustainability. To lose a field army in pursuit is to surrender strategic initiative permanently. To preserve an army preserves the capacity to hold Jaffa and to fight another day. Yet friends and critics have argued that the choice also embodies a failure of nerve or of vision. If annihilation of Saladin that day had been possible, the long-term map of the Levant might have been altered. This is the central irony of the 77-minute stretch that became 17 minutes of concentrated action. Tactical perfection and strategic ambiguity live together. The breakthrough is a demonstration of battlefield acumen, timing, formation, combined arms, psychological exploitation. It is a case study in how disciplined command can convert unauthorized courage into an organized advantage. Yet success at the tactical level does not always translate to strategic conquest. The larger war, supply lines, diplomatic alignments, political will back in Europe, and the resilience of an able commander like Saladin refuses to be decided in one glorious burst. The psychological lessons are as penetrating as the physical ones. Discipline beats spontaneous fury when the two are married. The Hospitaler's charge was spontaneous, but it had to be harnessed through command signals and immediate follow-up. Otherwise, it would have been wasted as cutting off a spearhead. Richard's horn, simple, rehearsed, converts scattered initiative into synchronized action. The wedge, effective because of force concentration rather than numbers, becomes a simple technical metaphor for leadership. Focus power on the single most exploitable point, and the rest will follow. Long-term, the battle reshapes lessons on cavalry warfare and combined arms. Commanders who study the morning at the coast learn that mobility and ranged harassment are potent, but they are not substitutes for weight applied at the right place and moment. The way infantry and cavalry support each other in the breakthrough becomes a model cited by later chroniclers and captains. Yet the event also warns of the limits of tactical mastery when strategic depth is lacking. A brilliant action that leaves the main prize uncaptured is a lesson in humility for any commander who dreams of decisive victory through battlefield heroics alone. There is also a moral and human dimension that must not be elided. Contemporary and modern readers alike can be seduced by the cinematic clarity of the breakthrough, the wedge, the horn, the collapse. But these images overlay a real human cost. Men who fought for pay, for faith, for lord or country, who died because of timing and fortune as much as because of skill. Both sides were professional soldiers with families, patrons, and reasons to fight. The chronicler's tallies of the slain become a legalistic shorthand that risks numbing the mind to the individual tragedies contained within them. Respect for this reality tempers the celebratory tone that can accompany purely tactical analysis. Strategically, The morning's episode becomes a moment of missed opportunity that ripples outward. The Crusaders' hold on Jaffa is firmed, the army is resupplied and morally buoyed, but Jerusalem does not fall back into Christian hands. Saladin's survival preserves the core political problem that the crusade aimed to solve. Instead of a single, decisive blow that ends a war, the campaign stretches into a protracted negotiation of attrition, politics, and intermittent combat. Richard's reputation as a commander is burnished in military terms. In political terms, the campaign will be judged a partial success, a demonstration of tactical brilliance, but not of political closure. In the centuries that follow, military thinkers will return to that 17-minute window again and again, measuring how discipline, timing, and the exploitation of psychological moments can overturn far larger threats. They will note the mingling of impulsive bravery and strict command, the value of simple signals in complex environments, and the danger of confusing tactical victory with strategic triumph. The battle at the coast, whether remembered as Arsuf or Arsuf Ars, names that vary in medieval manuscripts and in modern transcription, thus becomes a cautionary tale and a tactical exemplar in the same breath. Finally, the human stories persist. Baldwin of Carrow's charge is neither pure folly nor pure wisdom. It is a human act, with consequences beyond his control. Geir Dable's marshalling of men demonstrates how emergent leadership can convert panic into purpose. Taqi al-Din and the Mamluks show the difficulty of maintaining cohesion under calibrated attrition. Richard, ever the pragmatic commander, reveals a mind that prefers the preservation of force over the seduction of total annihilation when the arithmetic of the campaign demands it. 17 minutes did change the day. It bought the Crusaders Jaffa, it exposed the limits of Saladin's encirclement, and it produced a tactical template that would be studied by those who followed. Yet it did not end the war. It left open the larger, harder questions of supply, of diplomacy, and of the political will necessary to press beyond a single battlefield. In that sense, the title's claim, "Unbelievable Strategy Behind a 17-Minute Victory," rings true and also politely incomplete. The strategy is unbelievable in its local precision and discipline. It is less miraculous in its larger political consequences. History often rewards clarity of action with ambiguity of outcome. On that sun-baked shore, in the heat and dust and ring of horns, Richard converted an unauthorized spark into a rehearsed hammer blow. That convergence of chance and command is what makes the episode both cinematic and instructive. It teaches that moments of disorder can be turned into decisive action only when leadership recognizes an opening and converts emotion into instrument. It also teaches that a single perfectly executed moment cannot substitute for the patient architecture of grand strategy. If you want to dive deeper into the tactics used that day, wedge geometry, cavalry logistics, and the interplay of horse archer harassments and heavy shock troops, there's a playlist below that breaks down these elements and traces their influence across medieval warfare. For now, remember the paradox of the day. 17 minutes that prove the brilliance of a battlefield solution and the stubborn persistence of a strategic problem. That is the unbelievable strategy of Richard the Lionheart's 17-minute victory.